The midday sun beat down on the abandoned construction site in Dallas, Texas, turning the desolate landscape into a scorching inferno of dust and despair. The temperature had already spiked past a suffocating 104 degrees, creating heat waves that shimmered off the cracked earth like ghosts of the damned. In the center of this wasteland, tied ruthlessly to a jagged, rusted iron pillar, lay a creature whose suffering was almost too painful to witness. Angel, a once majestic golden retriever, was reduced to a trembling skeleton, her golden coat matted with grime and sweat. She wasn't just trapped, she was being slowly cooked alive by the merciless elements, abandoned in a place where no one was ever supposed to find her. The silence of the area was heavy, broken only by her ragged, shallow gasps for air. Her neck was raw and bleeding, encircled by a twisted loop of barbed wire that dug deeper into her flesh with every desperate movement she made. The pain was excruciating, a sharp reminder of the cruelty she had endured, but physical agony was the least of her worries right now. Her eyes, clouded with exhaustion and terror, were fixed intently on a cardboard box sitting just 10 feet away, agonizingly out of reach. That box was taped shut with thick industrial tape, sitting directly under the blistering sun like an oven. Inside were her 5 babies, her puppies, who had been crying for hours. But now, the box was terrifyingly still. Angel let out a low, heart-wrenching whine, pulling against the wire until blood trickled down her chest, but the metal held fast. She was a mother forced to watch her children face a silent death while she remained helpless. It wasn't supposed to end like this for a soul as pure as Angel, who had only ever known how to love and trust humans. Just hours before, a sleek luxury car had pulled into this forgotten lot, driven by a woman who looked like she had everything, yet possessed a heart blacker than coal. The security footage from a distant building would later reveal the monster in disguise, a well-dressed woman dragging Angel out, laughing as she tied the wire, and then callously tossing the box of puppies onto the burning gravel before speeding away. This wasn't an accident. It was an execution. Angel had barked and pleaded, wagging her tail in confusion at first, thinking it was a game, until the dust settled and the realization of abandonment crushed her spirit. Now, dehydrated and near death, she laid her head on the burning rocks, her tongue dry and white as parchment, praying for a miracle that seemed impossible. CTA. This poor mother is suffering beyond imagination. Before we see if help arrives, please subscribe to our channel and comment "Pray" to send strength to this angel. She needs a miracle right now, but fate, or perhaps something far more divine, had a different plan for this tragedy today. Miles away from his intended route, Caleb, a rugged maintenance electrician with calloused hands and a heart of gold, was cursing his malfunctioning GPS. His beat-up truck, filled with tools and a worn Bible on the dashboard, had led him down this dead-end dirt road, looking for a shortcut to a job site. He was about to turn around, frustrated by the heat and the delay, when he decided to stop and check a rattling noise in his rear tire. It was a mundane moment, a simple twist of luck, but as he stepped out of his air-conditioned cab into the stifling heat, the silence of the wasteland was pierced by a sound so faint it was almost carried away by the wind, a desperate, dying whimper. Caleb froze, his senses sharpening as he scanned the debris-littered horizon, wiping sweat from his brow. He was a man who believed that God places us exactly where we need to be, even when we think we are lost. He walked past piles of concrete and rebar, squinting against the glare, until his eyes landed on the heartbreaking silhouette of the golden retriever. Angel saw him too. In that moment, she didn't growl or bare her teeth in defense. She didn't have the strength for hate. Instead, she summoned the very last ounce of energy in her failing body to lift her head and thump her tail once, weakly, against the dirt. Her soulful brown eyes locked onto his, screaming a silent plea that no words could ever express. Please save them. The sight of her shattered Caleb's heart into a million pieces, sending a shockwave of adrenaline through his system. He didn't just see a dog. He saw a suffering soul that had been betrayed by the very species she was born to love. He sprinted toward her, disregarding the sharp rocks tearing at his boots, his mind racing with horror as he got closer and saw the barbed wire slicing into her neck. "Oh, sweet girl, what have they done to you?" he choked out, falling to his knees beside her in the dirt. But as he reached out to comfort her, Angel didn't lean into his touch. Instead, she frantically nudged his hand with her nose and pointed her snout toward the silent cardboard box. Caleb followed her gaze, and when he saw the tape and the slight, almost imperceptible movement inside, the blood ran cold in his veins. The realization hit him like a physical blow to the gut. There were living creatures trapped inside that taped-up coffin. He scrambled over to the box, his hands shaking with a mix of fury and panic. The cardboard was hot to the touch, radiating heat like a furnace. How long had they been in there? Were they even still alive? The silence coming from inside was deafening, a terrifying contrast to the chaotic beating of his own heart. He looked back at Angel, who was watching him with an intensity that pierced his soul, her life hanging by a thread, yet her only concern was for the babies she couldn't reach. This was the ultimate definition of a mother's love, enduring torture just to keep watch over her young. Caleb knew he had to act with surgical precision and lightning speed, but the situation was critical. He rushed back to Angel first, needing to free her to assess the damage, but the wire was tangled in a complex rusty knot that defied his bare fingers. The more he pulled, the more Angel whimpered, the metal barbs threatening to sever a major artery if he made one wrong move. He cursed the monster who did this, feeling a righteous anger boil up inside him that he hadn't felt in years. He was a strong man, but brute strength wouldn't work here. He needed tools, and he needed them yesterday. The clock was ticking down, and the Reaper was hovering over this construction site, waiting to claim 6 innocent lives. This situation is critical. Do you think Caleb arrived in time to save the puppies in the box? Hit the like button if you believe God sent him here for a reason. Let's pray he can get them out before it's too late. Caleb scrambled to his feet, his boots kicking up dust as he sprinted back to his truck with the desperation of a man chasing a fleeing train. Every second wasted was another drop of life draining from Angel and her trapped babies. He threw open the heavy metal door of his toolbox, rummaging frantically through wrenches and hammers until his fingers curled around the cold steel of his heavy-duty industrial bolt cutters. He also grabbed his gallon jug of ice water, condensation dripping down the side like tears. The heat was relentless, a physical weight pressing down on his shoulders, but Caleb ignored the sweat stinging his eyes. He was on a mission from God now, and failure was absolutely not an option. He rushed back to the scene, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The first priority was the box. If those puppies were still in there, they were baking in a cardboard oven. Caleb fell to his knees beside the taped-up package, the heat radiating from it terrifying him to his core. He didn't dare rip it open immediately, fearing the sudden rush of hot air or the shock of what he might find inside. Instead, he unscrewed the cap of his water jug and began to carefully pour the icy liquid over the cardboard, soaking the sides to lower the temperature inside. It was a calculated risk, a desperate attempt to cool the inferno before exposing the fragile lives within to the blinding sun. Angel watched him with wide, fearful eyes, her breathing ragged and shallow. She didn't understand what this strange man was doing with the water, but she sensed his urgency. When Caleb turned his attention to her, the fear in her gaze spiked. She flinched as he approached with the massive, menacing cutters, her body tensing in anticipation of more pain. The trauma of her abuse was fresh. The last human hands that touched her had tied her up to die. "It's okay, Mama. I'm here to help you," Caleb murmured, his voice cracking with emotion. He needed her to trust him, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. He moved slowly, broadcasting peace, even as his internal alarm bells were screaming. The wire was wrapped fiendishly tight, the metal barbs buried deep within the sensitive skin of her throat. It wasn't just a knot. It was a tangled mess of rust and cruelty designed to hold a bear, let alone a gentle dog. Caleb positioned the jaws of the cutter, but his hands were slippery with sweat, and the angle was awkward. He tried to get leverage, but the rusty pillar blocked his movement. One slip, just one wrong jerk of his hand, and the sharp blades could slice into Angel's jugular vein instead of the wire. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Angel let out a low, pathetic whimper as the cold metal of the tool brushed against her open wound. Suddenly, Angel panicked. Maybe it was the pain, or a flashback to her abuser, but she thrashed violently against the restraint. "No, no, stay still," Caleb pleaded, dropping the cutters to hold her head gently but firmly. The wire dug deeper, and fresh, bright red blood welled up. staining her golden fur. It was a moment of near failure that stopped Caleb's heart. If she didn't calm down, she would kill herself before he could save her. He pressed his forehead against hers, disregarding the grime and the blood, and hummed a low, steady sound. He needed to transfer his calm to her, to let her feel his heartbeat and know that he was a friend. Miraculously, she froze, her eyes locking onto his, sensing the truth in his soul. With Angel momentarily still, Caleb seized his chance. He maneuvered the heavy cutters back into place, biting his lip, until he tasted iron. He clamped the jaws around the thickest part of the wire loop and squeezed with all his might. The muscles in his forearms burned, the veins bulging with the effort. The wire was stubborn, ancient and hardened, resisting the force of the tool. For a terrifying second, the cutters jammed, refusing to snap the metal. Caleb gritted his teeth and let out a roar of exertion, putting his entire body weight into the handle. Snap! The sound rang out like a gunshot in the quiet. Wasteland. The tension released instantly. The wire sprang away and Angel fell limp against the dirt, the constricting noose finally broken. Caleb worked quickly to unwind the remaining barbed coils, his fingers gentle as he pulled the spikes from her raw flesh. When the last piece fell away, the damage was horrifyingly visible, a deep, angry ring of raw tissue around her neck, but she was free. Yet she didn't try to run away. She didn't try to bite. Instead, she did something that broke Caleb completely. She ignored her own freedom and dragged her weak, trembling body toward the wet cardboard box. She pawed at it feebly, letting out a soft, questioning bark. Caleb knew what he had to do. He pulled his knife from his belt and sliced through the soggy tape of the box, his breath held in his lungs. This was the moment of truth. As he folded back the flaps, the smell of damp, hot cardboard and puppy scent wafted up. Inside, 5 tiny bodies lay in a heap, motionless. They looked like little stuffed toys that had been discarded. There was no movement, no squeaking, just a terrifying stillness. Angel let out a sound that was half howl, half sob, shoving her nose into the box to nudge them. Caleb's stomach dropped. Had he been too late? Was this rescue mission about to turn into a funeral? "Come on, little ones, fight," Caleb whispered, his voice trembling. He reached in and picked up the first puppy, a tiny cream-colored male. The puppy was limp, his body alarmingly hot. Caleb poured a small capful of water into his hand and rubbed it on the puppy's gums and belly. Nothing happened. He grabbed another and another, wetting their fur, trying to simulate the cooling lick of a mother. Seconds felt like hours. Angel was frantic now, licking the lifeless bodies with a desperation that was painful to watch. The heat had shut their systems down, putting them into a deep, comatose slumber to protect their organs. Then, a miracle. The tiny cream puppy gasped, a small, ragged intake of air that sounded like the most beautiful symphony Caleb had ever heard. Then a cough, then a weak, high-pitched squeak. One by one, as the water cooled their skin and their mother's tongue stimulated their circulation, the puppies began to stir. It was chaotic and messy, but it was life. They weren't out of the woods, not by a long shot, but they were breathing. Caleb didn't waste another second waiting for a full recovery here in the dust. The sun was still trying to kill them. He needed to get this entire family into a controlled environment immediately. He scooped up the box with the puppies, now squirming faintly, and carried them to his truck. Angel, despite her exhaustion and injuries, found the strength to stumble after him, refusing to let her babies out of her sight. Caleb opened the passenger door and lifted Angel onto the seat, her heavy body practically dead weight in his arms. She settled instantly, her eyes never leaving the box he placed on the floorboard. He blasted the air conditioning to the max, the cool air hitting them like a blessing. As he slammed the door and ran to the driver's side, he looked back one last time at the pillar and the wire, the instruments of torture they were leaving behind. Inside the truck, the atmosphere shifted from panic to a tense, focused mission. Caleb started the engine, the roar of the diesel motor drowning out the silence of the wasteland. He glanced over at his passengers. Angel had her head hanging over the edge of the seat, watching the box below. She looked up at Caleb, and for the first time her tail gave a slow, rhythmic thump against the upholstery. It was a thank you, a surrender. She knew she was safe, but as Caleb looked at her bloody neck and the lethargic puppies, he knew the battle was far from over. They were alive, but they were broken. They are out of the sun, but the danger is real. Angel is severely injured, and the puppies are barely clinging to life. If you want to see this, family survived the night. Hit that like button right now. Your support powers our mission. Now let's rush them to the vet. The drive to the veterinary clinic was a blur of asphalt and adrenaline. Caleb drove his truck like an ambulance, his hazard lights flashing as he wove through the Dallas traffic. Beside him, Angel's breathing had shifted from panting to a terrifyingly shallow wheeze. The adrenaline of the rescue was wearing off, and the catastrophic reality of her condition was setting in. Her eyes were rolling back, the whites showing as her body went into shock. The air conditioning was on full blast, but she was burning up with a fever that radiated heat like a furnace. Caleb kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other gently resting on her head, whispering prayers, begging her to hold on for just a few more miles. They screeched into the parking lot of the emergency vet clinic, the tires smoking against the pavement. Caleb didn't wait to park properly. He abandoned the truck at the entrance and scooped Angel up in his arms, shouting for help. The staff, used to emergencies but shocked by the state of the dog, rushed out with a gurney. They carefully transferred Angel's limp body while a nurse grabbed the box of puppies. The sterile smell of the clinic replaced the dust of the construction site, but the tension was even thicker here. As the double doors swung shut behind the medical team, separating Caleb from the dog he had just promised to save, he felt a crushing weight of helplessness. Dr. Sarah Miller, the head veterinarian, took one look at Angel's neck and her face went pale. The wound wasn't just a cut, it was a complex trauma. The rusty wire had severed muscle tissue and was dangerously close to the jugular vein, but the real enemy was invisible. The smell of infection was overpowering. "We need to get her on IV fluids and broad-spectrum antibiotics immediately," Dr. Miller barked to her team, "and get those puppies into the incubator. They're severely dehydrated and hypoglycemic." The room became a hive of controlled chaos, machines beeping and nurses moving with practiced urgency, while the puppies were stabilized with glucose and fluids, perking up almost instantly thanks to their resilience. Angel's battle was far more desperate. Dr. Miller came out to the waiting room, her expression grave. She sat down next to Caleb, who was still covered in dust and dried blood. "Caleb, I need to be honest with you," she said softly. "The external wound is bad, but she has septicemia. The infection from the rust has entered her bloodstream. Her kidneys are struggling, and she's severely malnourished. We need to operate to debride the necrotic tissue around her neck, but anesthesia in her condition it's a massive risk." Caleb looked through the glass window where Angel lay on the stainless steel table, hooked up to a web of tubes. She looked so small, so defeated. "Do whatever it takes, Doc," Caleb said, tears cutting, tracks through the dirt on his face. "She didn't fight this hard just to die on a comfortable table. She's a mother. She needs to live." Dr. Miller nodded, seeing the determination in his eyes. She went back in, and the surgery began. The surgery in progress light turned on, a red beacon of anxiety that seemed to mock the passing seconds. The next 2 hours were the longest of Caleb's life. He paced the small waiting room, clutching his worn Bible, reading verses about deliverance and healing. Every time a nurse walked by, his heart jumped into his throat. Inside the operating room, the situation was critical. As Dr. Miller cut away the dead tissue, Angel's blood pressure plummeted. The monitors began to scream a high-pitched warning. "She's crashing," a technician shouted. The room froze. Angel's heart, tired from abuse and starvation, was giving up. Dr. Miller worked frantically, pushing epinephrine and massaging Angel's chest. "Come on, girl, don't you dare quit on me," she whispered fiercely. For a terrifying minute, the line on the monitor was flat. The silence in the room was deafening, heavier than the concrete blocks Angel had been tied to. But then, as if hearing the distant cries of her puppies from the next room, a faint beep returned. Then another. Her heart fluttered, then found a rhythm again. It was weak, but it was there. She had looked death in the face and growled back. When Dr. Miller finally emerged, she looked exhausted, pulling off her surgical cap. "She made it," she exhaled, leaning against the doorframe. It was touch and go. She flatlined for a moment, Caleb, but she came back. "I've been a vet for 20 years, and I've rarely seen a will to live that strong." Caleb collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands, shaking with relief. The surgery was a success. The wound was clean and stitched, but the battle wasn't won yet. The night would be the true test. They moved Angel into a recovery kennel, wrapped in warm blankets, with a heating pad and fluids pumping life back into her veins. Caleb refused to go home. He pulled a chair right up to the bars of her kennel. The clinic staff, moved by his devotion, allowed him to stay. As the lights dimmed for the night, Angel finally opened her eyes. They were groggy and glazed, but when she saw Caleb, she didn't look away. She recognized her savior. The crisis, however, had one more twist. In the middle of the night, Angel became restless, whining softly. She tried to stand up, pulling at her IV lines. Caleb panicked, thinking she was in pain, but then he realized where she was looking. She was staring at the incubator across the room where her puppies were sleeping. She wouldn't rest until she knew they were safe. Caleb asked a nurse if he could bring one over. The nurse gently placed the strongest puppy near Angel's nose. Angel took a deep sniff, licked the puppy's head once, and then let out a long, deep sigh, finally resting her head back down. Her heart rate stabilized instantly. By morning, the transformation was subtle but undeniable. The fever had broken. Angel was sitting up, watching the clinic bustle with a quiet dignity. Her neck was heavily bandaged, making her look like a wounded soldier, but the light had returned to her eyes. When Dr. Miller checked her vitals, she smiled. "Her kidney function is improving. The antibiotics are working. I think our girl is going to be okay." It was the miracle they had prayed for, but the emotional victory was just beginning. As Caleb was feeding Angel her first real meal, a bowl of high-calorie recovery food that she devoured with polite eagerness, Dr. Miller walked in with a grim look, holding a clipboard. "Caleb, we scanned her for a microchip. She didn't have one, but the police have seen the security footage you told them about. They identified the car. The wheels of justice were turning. The monster who did this wasn't an abstract ghost anymore. She was a target." The news seemed to empower Angel. She wasn't just a victim. She was a survivor who was now the center of a movement. She stood up, shaky on her legs, and let out a bark, not of fear, but of assertion. She walked over to Caleb and pressed her head against his chest, her tail wagging slowly but strongly. It was a pact sealed in blood and redeemed by love. The dark night of the soul was over. Angel and her puppies were alive. They had survived the heat, the wire, and the infection. Now, they faced a new challenge, learning how to be a family in a world that wasn't trying to hurt them. Caleb looked at the 6 lives he had saved, and he knew his life would never be the same either. He had gone in to fix a wire and ended up fixing a broken family. The tragedy was over. The healing was about to begin. This brave mama fought death and won. Now she needs a name for her new life. What should Caleb name her? Suggest a beautiful name in the comments. And if you are relieved she survived, type Amen to bless her. Recovery. 2 months have passed since that nightmare afternoon in the scorching heat, and if you saw Angel today, you wouldn't believe it was the same dog. The transformation is nothing short of a miracle. The skeleton that was once wrapped in barbed wire has vanished, replaced by a radiant creature full of life and vigor. Her coat, which had been matted with blood and grime, has grown back thick, lustrous, and the color of pure honey. The deep, angry scar around her neck is now just a faint line hidden beneath her new fur, a battle scar that tells the story of her survival. She has gained 20 pounds of healthy muscle, and the rib cage that once protruded painfully is now covered by a healthy layer of softness. The real magic happened during her spa day, a celebration of her return to health. Caleb prepared a warm bath in his backyard, using gentle oatmeal shampoo to soothe her healing skin. As the warm water rinsed away the last remnants of the construction site dust, Angel didn't pull away. She leaned into the massage, closing her eyes in pure bliss. It was a baptism of sorts, washing away the trauma of her past. When Caleb dried her off with a fluffy towel and brushed her coat out, she looked like a show dog. She spun around in circles, barking joyfully at the water hose, her tail wagging so hard her whole body wiggled. The sad, broken mother was gone. A playful, happy puppy had taken her place. And the puppies, those 5 little lifeless bundles, are now absolute chaos agents of joy. They are chubby, energetic land sharks with razor-sharp teeth and boundless energy. Thanks to Caleb's dedication and Angel's milk, they grew strong and fearless. The backyard is their kingdom, where they wrestle, chase butterflies, and attack Caleb's shoelaces with ferocity. Angel watches over them, not with the terrified eyes of a mother fearing for their lives, but with the proud, relaxed gaze of a mom who knows her babies are safe. She even joins in their games, rolling in the green grass, teaching them how to be dogs. It is the picture of a family restored. While the family healed, the wheels of justice were turning in the background. The police used the security footage Caleb provided to track down the luxury car. The woman, a wealthy real estate agent who thought she was above the law, was arrested at her office. The news reported that she was charged with 6 counts of animal cruelty and faced significant jail time and a massive fine. The community was outraged and her reputation was destroyed. It was a satisfying dose of karma. While she sat in a cold cell, the trash she tried to discard was living like royalty. The universe had balanced the scales. The evil was punished, and the innocent were exalted. As the weeks went on, it came time to find homes for the puppies. Caleb carefully vetted every single applicant, ensuring they would go to families who would treat them like princes. One by one, the puppies left for their forever homes, leaving Caleb and Angel alone. Caleb had originally planned to foster Angel until she was well enough to be adopted, but who was he kidding? The bond formed in the fire of that rescue was unbreakable. The first time a potential adopter came to see her, Caleb felt a knot in his stomach. He looked at Angel and she looked at him, leaning her heavy head against his leg. That was it. He took down the "for adoption" post. She was already home. The final scene of our story takes place on Caleb's front porch as the sun sets, painting the Texas sky in shades of orange and purple. The heat is no longer a threat. It's just a gentle warmth on a peaceful evening. Caleb sits in his rocking chair, his Bible open on his lap, a mug of coffee in his hand. Beside him, lying on a soft, expensive orthopedic bed, is Angel. She isn't tied to a rusted pillar. She is tethered only by love. She sleeps soundly, twitching slightly as she dreams of chasing squirrels, secure in the knowledge that she will never be hungry, thirsty, or alone again. This journey from the brink of death to this moment of perfect peace is a testament to the power of compassion. Angel was thrown away like garbage, deemed worthless by a monster, but found by a man who saw a treasure. It reminds us that no matter how dark the world can be, there are still people like Caleb who are willing to stop, to help, and to love. Angel's story isn't just about a dog rescue, it's about the redemption of the soul. The hand that saves is always more powerful than the hand that hurts. This story proves that every animal deserves a second chance. Now I have a serious question for you. Do you think the woman who did this deserves forgiveness, or should she stay in jail forever? Let us know your honest opinion in the comments. If this rescue touched your heart, please leave a like to support our channel. Every like helps us tell more stories like Angel's. And finally,